This podcast includes graphic depictions of true crime cases and may contain explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Saw the Devil. This is Robin.
This is Jackie.
And today's episode is part 2, much awaited part 2, mind you, of the Order of the Solar Temple from our cult series.
Which is exciting.
It is, and I have to be completely honest. We got a few requests for this particular cult, and I wasn't really excited about it. I was like, all right, well, they just seem kind of like your run-of-the-mill, and now I think they are my absolute personal favorite. I love history, and it's just so much, so in-depth, and surprisingly, as you will hear, there are structural ties to Nixium. Ooh. Which I did not realize. And so that's kind of cool in it, in itself.
I mean, cults are going to cult, right?
Cults are going to cult. So let's get some housekeeping out of the way really quickly before we get into that. First, guys, people have messaged, people have emailed, and they're like, why are your episodes taking so long? I mentioned it in the first episode of our Lori Vallow, the audio series that we did with special guest Brittany. But let me just give you a little bit more information. So on November 2nd, my mother suffered a stroke and she went into the hospital. Basically, long story short, here we are on December 1st. Both of my parents are in a care facility and now they have contracted COVID.
Yeah.
So suffice it to say, the last month has been a whirlwind. Both of my parents are older, in their 80s, and now they have COVID. So, and I'm across the country. I'm going to be dealing with moving across the country, which we're trying to turn into a positive there. I'm having to move across the country to assist with their affairs. And guys, it has been a lot. So for our patrons who are aware of what's going on and know and have been sending continuous words of support, I really appreciate it. It has been a really, really, really dark time for the last month. I just wanted to let everyone know that we're not sitting here partying and being lazy and not focusing on the show at all. We very much, the show is a priority, but unfortunately life can trump it at times and be a little bit more important. So that's what's been going on. And we will do our very, 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 very best.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for sticking around with us during these hard times. And we are going to try and, as you said, turn into a positive thing. So we're getting an RV. Mm-hmm. So we don't get COVID on the way, all the way to the south. So that means we're going to hit up a lot of states, and that's a lot of places where true crime has happened.
As all of you already know in one of our previous Get to Know You episodes, I am from Tennessee. So we will be moving from Portland all the way over to Tennessee.
It's going to be quite the journey, especially with dogs and bird.
What we decided to do is turn it into kind of a true crime road trip to make the best of it, guys. So what we're going to do is along the way, along our path, we're going to research and find some true crime cases to cover, visit, photograph, and then do an episode on while we are there.
I think it would be really fun. And what is going to be so cool about it is maybe we can make an interactive map.
That's what I thought. Have a map where you guys see where
we're at. Please don't stalk us. Please don't follow us. That'd be really weird. But
please don't caravan behind us. Yeah, we would like to make this as cool of an interactive type of thing as we can. And it's a sad move. It's not something that I had planned. I mean, to be quite honest, I'm quite happy here in the Pacific Northwest, but unfortunately life gets in the way. So trying to make the best out of it. And what makes us happy? That's true crime.
That is true.
Just wanted to share a bit with you guys. Again, thank you for all of the kind words, but I promise we are still here. We are still pumping out episodes. Unfortunately, I am going through quite a bit right now. Other than that, don't forget, typical housekeeping. You can find us at WeSawTheDevil.com. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at WeSawTheDevil and Instagram at WeSawTheDevil Podcast. Now, December 1st. It is now December 1st, which means if you sign up for our Patreon, you will not be double charged. It's the first day of a new month. So if you're enjoying the show, if you like the show, if you want to back us and also get some cool goodies for our true crime road trip.
Yes.
Then check us out on Patreon. That's patreon.com/WeSawTheDevil, where you can get postcards from our case of the month, merch, true crime goodies, ad-free episodes, which a lot of people appreciate, and so forth. If you are interested, please check us out there. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and get into it then. In episode 1, we left off with Luc Jouret, a homeopathic doctor and spiritualist, accepting a speaking invitation from an organization called The Golden Way in Geneva, Switzerland. Doesn't that just sound like a Scandinavian cult? The Golden Way.
The Golden Way. Yeah, it does. Or it sounds like one of those VA bars. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
If you recall, Luc Jouret was heavily interested in both the occult and the paranormal, and he ended up integrating those beliefs with his career as a homeopathic practitioner. And also, if you recall, the Golden Way was a cult founded by French clock and jewelry maker Joseph de Mambreux. And de Mambreux, in our last episode, if you need to catch up, do so and listen to episode 1. We go through both of their biographies, as well as a history of the Knights Templar, which comes heavily into play with this particular cult.
The Knights Templar is really cool. If you like history at all, check it out.
It is. It's got your gore, it has like religious aspects and torture, and it's great.
It has knights. I mean, it has knights and with cool aesthetic.
So the Golden Way was founded by Joseph de Mambreux, and its main idea was that we live in a, quote, world in transition. And only through chivalry and good works can someone prepare their earth vessel for their next life. And that sounds fairly benign, right? You help others in order to make your soul righteous. Luc Jouret accepted Joseph de Mambreux's invitation to speak at the Golden Way, and the two men became very fast friends. De Mambreux then introduced Jouret to Julien Origas, a former German Gestapo agent and right-wing political French activist.
This is going in a good direction.
Right.
This doesn't sound good. I'm not going to lie to you.
Now, he was the leader of another cult group in Switzerland called the Renewed Order of the Solar Temple. And here's something that you must understand. There are many iterations of ... Order of the Solar Temple. The one that we are covering for this particular cult was just one of many different separate little groups.
Which you wouldn't expect, right? Because anytime you look this up, it's always just the Order of the Solar Temple.
Right, exactly. Julien Origas, the Renewed Order of the Solar Temple, it combined philosophies from both the Knights Templar and the Rosicrucians, which we'd also covered in our last episode. And it also included a lot of neo-Nazi beliefs.
Whoa.
So
always good.
Yeah, always good when you have a cult led by a literal Nazi bringing in the Knights Templar and the Rosicrucian stuff. It's just always a good time. So in 1981, Luc Jouret became a member of this Renewed Order of the Temple. And then Julien Origas died in 1983, so Jouret stepped up and became its Grand Master.
Anything Grand Master or Grand Wizard just doesn't sound appealing.
No, it's probably not something Grand Master, Grand Wizard, Grand Mage, like, probably should take a step back and not take part in that.
Unless it's Vermin Supreme.
Exactly.
That's the only one that I will allow to be my leader.
It's the Grand Supreme. The problem was that many members of the temple did not support Jouret's leadership, and he was actually run out of that group entirely, but not before he took over half of its members with him. And Joseph de Mambreux, still a close friend of Jouret's, was very happy with that outcome because he saw in Jouret what he lacked in himself, and that was charisma. Luc Jouret was very charismatic, and he was also considered super, super attractive, like rock star model status attractive. So he reached out back to his friend, and they discussed founding their own group together because their ideals fit so perfectly with one another. And then they did. In 1983, they founded the International Chivalric Organization Solar Tradition in Geneva, Switzerland. That is a mouthful.
Do it again. Say it again. 3 times fast.
International Chivalric Organization Solar Tradition. And in the first few years, Jouret began to travel the world giving paid lectures and actually established quite a name for himself in the New Age and esoteric community. He became so well known that he was even doing mainstream radio interviews.
What? I didn't anticipate that.
Yeah. And Luc Jouret had then, at this point, founded a handful of other groups. And it's likely that he actually learned this from Jacques Brier, another French esoteric cult speaker at the time. Jacques Brier was one of the founders of what many liken to the MLM marketing cult scheme kind of structure.
Not to be off topic, but his last name makes me want ice cream.
It does. I kind of want it too. It's a linty in the freezer.
And Brier's.
Yeah, Brier's is gross. Now, Jacques Brier is very, very, very significant when it comes to this group in particular, and his work is actually frequently alluded to in all of their writings. So Jacques Brier belonged to the group, the Sovereign Order of the Solar Temple, and that one was founded in 1952. He ended up leaving it in 1964, but this was probably the most important solar temple out of all of them. And here's the reason. The Knights Templar, if you recall in episode 1, the church ended up going against them. King Charles ended up going against them. They were exiled, tortured, and pretty much run out of France entirely.
And didn't they burn the remains too?
Yeah.
Like, they just went a step further and they're like, you know what? I hate their bones. I hate them to the bones.
They really did. Throughout the years, since the late 1800s, there have been many sightings of supposed Knights Templar. And this is where it actually gets really interesting, and I plan, even after this series, to read more about this. Apparently, French Freemasons claimed that in order to escape persecution, the Knights Templars blended in with stonemasons of the time. So if you see the Freemasons, modern day, right, with all of their rituals, that's the Freemasons actually claim that the Templars gave that to them. So in 1952, with Jacques Brier, he tried to restart the Knights Templar, basically, like that entire group. He tried to re-spark that. That's where the 1952 version, like resurgence efforts came from. And the International Chivalric Order of the Solar Temple consistently alluded to that 1952 insurgent. In 1952, that was the very first one, the Sovereign Order. And since then, there have been hundreds of Order of the Solar Temples created.
It just feels like a secret society for men.
It basically is.
They got the handshake. They got the creepy like MLM scheme going.
Yeah, especially with the Freemasons. But the Solar Temples do in fact allow women. So remember that neo-Nazi Julian Origas? His group, the Renovated Order of the Solar Temple in 1968, also followed Jacques Brier's Sovereign Order of the Solar Temple. So we have Jacques Brier being the first, and then the Nazi Julian Origas following Brier, and so on and so on and so on. So the point is that this Templar-based group, or the ... of the Solar Temple variety, had been tried many, many times before the one that this podcast is covering. Around 1980, there were over 200 rival ... Solar Temple Templar orders.
I'm pretty sure most of you did not know that.
I didn't even know that.
Me either.
And then today, in 2020, there are supposedly almost 1,000 sex, private, like cult-like little organizations that utilize the Solar Temple / Knights Templar variety.
Do they dress like them?
Well, they're all different types of them. Some I guess probably are sinister, but they vary from apocalyptic to cover groups for spies, governments, political arms, the occult, sex magic. Some of them, there's even a BDSM one that you can read about if you want to take the time to.
Who doesn't have the time?
My favorite one, complete side note, my favorite one while doing this research is a medieval sex club that's based on the Knights Templar. And they actually discovered this one because in like this little chalet in Scandinavia, a man was found with 2 cross bolts going through both of his eyes.
Oh my God.
And he was wearing a Knights Templar getup. And so they uncovered this entire sex cult based on the Knights Templar.
Please tell me that the bolts going through his eyes had something to do with the sex cult.
Good question.
The kink.
Oh my God. I have no idea, but it's just so ridiculous. Most of them are a little bit more than just LARPers. I mean, literally, most of them are just LARPers. There's even in Italy, they have one. It's literally like a Templar supper club, and they dress up as Knights Templar, and then they go out and eat dinner.
I just want to do that,
right?
But I guess being in full garb like that can be a little intimidating.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be a guy, right? Usually for most of these. Am I excluded?
We will get there.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, it's just really interesting that the association with Knights being the beacon of all that is fair, you know? It's very popular. And unfortunately, here in 2020, there are on record almost 1,000.
Well, it's interesting because Knights are considered to be the symbol and beacon of chivalry.
Yep.
And so I could see that why a lot of LARPers would be attracted to that.
Plus, really cool aesthetic.
Yeah, they have a cool aesthetic. The Crusaders had a cool aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Now, to understand all of this, and in particular how all of this relates to the cult that we're covering, this particular flavor of the Solar Temple, you almost have to think of it as NXIVM. So if you are aware of NXIVM, if you have not been living under a rock, you watch The Vow, the new, my personal favorite, The Seduced one that's been out.
Which is better than The Vow.
God, The Vow is terrible compared to it. You almost have to think of it as kind of that sort of cult scheme, because off the top of my head, that's the only other one that I can think of that's organized in this way. Here, we're going to talk about the structure. So the very first thing that Luc Jouret and Joseph de Membro did was they founded the Amenta Club. And the goal of this club was to generally disseminate the group's philosophies and to bring in basically as many new converts as possible. And this was the basic public face of the group. To the beginner, the group's mission was one of just achieving a higher state of consciousness. Now, that's pretty benign.
Yeah, that seems, relatively normal.
Like kumbaya, let's all come together and reach this higher consciousness. It seems pretty harmless. The Menta Club was the registered business name, too, that held all of Luc Jouret's travel and lectures that he did all over the world. He did travel the world, and he got paid for doing all of these lectures on topics like medicine and conscience and love and biology. And if someone really, really connected with those lectures and wanted to learn more, they would be personally invited to join the Arcadia Club.
It must be so easy to get drawn and stuff like that.
Oh, it really is. Liken this to Nixium, where you come in, you do a seminar, you pay for the seminars, you do all of this, you go through the levels. Hey, would you like to join this other group? We have a women's group. I think you'd be great for it. It's the same concept. And what's so interesting is that Jacques Breyer actually came up with this himself, literally as a grooming, cult brainwashing technique. If you've watched The Vow, you've understood how they worked, how they bring you in and then they, build you up. They recommend you to other groups.
They give you structure to follow.
And then they isolate you because if you're constantly working within the group's framework, you have no time for anything else.
No, you don't. And you are always trying to achieve the next goal. And
Exactly.
You're shamed for not trying. Mm-hmm. You're not a higher level thinking individual if you don't achieve these goals, right? And what's interesting is that out of all of this, I'm learning to never go to a seminar.
Ever, regardless of what it is, no seminars, guys. Bad news bears.
Yeah, it seems like that this seminars and lectures are, I'm not talking about academic lectures, but seminars seem to be this really great outreach that they do to try and draw people in.
I'm going to go ahead and throw it out. So shortly after Jackie and I moved to the Pacific Northwest, we were getting some home decor stuff. It was 1 a.m. and we needed a trash can. And so we ran into a Walmart at 1 a.m. and we're standing there on the home goods aisle, like literally picking out a trash can. And all of a sudden, this really, really pretty...
She looked like Lori Vallow.
She looked actually just like Lori Vallow. Dare I say prettier. She was very well put together. She was wearing like a professional pantsuit thing. Why at 1 a.m.? We should have asked ourselves. But she said, you guys look, very interesting. And
you look familiar.
You look familiar. Yeah, you look familiar was her opening. And she complimented Jackie's eyes like everybody does. But she just had this like very weird air about her. Like, she wouldn't leave. And so...
like, why are you leaving? Is that the nightmare?
We're dressed like complete scrubs. We just, driven 6 days straight. Needed a damn trash can. And then
needed a shower.
A shower. Our hair is greasy. And then here's this beautiful woman at 1 a.m. in a pantsuit trying to talk to us. So it was sketch to begin with. And then she's like, well, what are you guys into? Do you work? And what do you do? And what kind of personal goals do you have? And I was like, okay, well, this is just going to be your typical MLM.
Right. Or something like that. Right. And I was like, okay, what kind of religious oriented thing are you going to point me towards right now?
And so she said, well, I'm friends with very important people.
That's her exact verbiage.
Yeah. I'm friends with very important people. And I can introduce them to you. It's kind of a self-help for professionals group. And, we get together and I have to approve you. So I need your names, where you're from, what you do. And if you're approved, then I can bring you to our next seminar. And then she dropped a seminar that she was going to in Seattle.
Yeah. And she was really relying on us going, you say yes to things when you feel socially pressured and you just want to be nice and just kind of want to move on with your day.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened with her. We're like, yeah, sure. Okay. And that just became this weird bullying tactic where she kept blowing up our phones.
I decided to actually give her our phone number. I'm like, you know what? This lady's harmless. She can't find us and, whatever. So I gave her Jackie's phone number.
Thanks.
You're welcome. And this lady, guys, was crazy.
She left me like 6 voicemails and she called me 7 times and...
Called you names?
Oh, yeah. She called me names. That was fun. I actually dared to answer at one point and I was just trying to be nice, and just... I didn't necessarily just want to be straight up mean to her. I have no reason to be mean. And then all of a sudden she's like, well, I don't appreciate blah, 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 blah. Are you actually serious about this? Blah, blah, blah. I know very important people. And I
know very important people, and you're not going to get anywhere. I can make you go places, and the people I know can make you go places. And I'm like, are we being recruited for sex work, trafficking, or is this an actual self-help group? And she did name drop, and I can't remember his name, but he was a Christian self-help author that she was going to a seminar in Seattle in 2018.
Does it sound familiar?
If any of you know of a Christian self-help author who had a seminar in Seattle, if you want to do the research, please let us know.
She talked about how she worked for an electrical company or something like that. It was a microchip. It was a microchip company, and she was. I prodded her. I was like, "What do you do for a living?"
Yeah.
You know? And she was like, I work in a factory.
Yeah, and wearing a pantsuit.
Right. And, because I wanted to know, because somebody who's proclaiming to know really important people would have gone pretty far in their life beyond factory assembly. Mm-hmm. And then, what's interesting is that because I catch on to a lot of really weird things in conversations, I brought up trees and how I love trees, and she said she hated trees, and I'm like, there's something wrong with you. and then she proceeded to say how her apartment complex has a lot of trees and she hates it, and I'm like, you live in an apartment and you work in a factory and you're wearing a pantsuit.
Trying to tell us that you know very important people and that we could be wealthy.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay.
If any of you know what potential group that was, please let us know. We called it right off the bat. We knew. We thought, what the hell? It's fun. It's a fun game to play to try to figure this out and not let it go too far. But let us know if this rings a bell. Moving back to the Order of the Solar Temple, the second level, or the second group that you could be personally invited to, was the Arcadia Club. And we're starting to get more devout here. The objective of this particular group was to give members more, quote, advanced knowledge that would move them towards that higher consciousness. So this is really for the people who bought the bullshit.
And I find the spelling interesting of Arcadia. Mm-hmm. It's like arch and Edia in a way. Like it has this ring of old to it.
Yeah.
And how they did like the kind of spelling wordplay.
Mm-hmm. And this is also where Luc Jouret's lectures on homeopathy really come into play. Basically, he utilized his homeopathy in order to recruit people and then also nail down the beliefs and tenets of the group. So they also really tried to steer all interpersonal relationships through the group. And this is via get-togethers, hanging out, business ventures. For example, group members tried to open a health food store in Geneva, Switzerland together, but like grouping together their own money, which then the income would obviously go to the group. And this actually became one of the big money-making schemes in the Order of the Solar Temple, this particular one, because that's what they would do. They would open up health food groups, and they did so in Canada and in Europe. 3 different types of members, for the most part, who joined the Arcadia Club. That would be ex-members of the renovated Order of the Solar Temple, the one with Nazi ties, patients of Luc Jouret from his physical homeopathic practice location, and then also the third, people who had just been to Luc Jouret's lectures. And what's so interesting is that at this point, Luc Jouret was in his prime. He would do a lecture and he would sell out whole lecture halls at universities. They were full. Hundreds of people would come hear him speak. Also, where the new piece for the Arcadia Club is that we had a ritual initiation ceremony. They utilized a set of symbols taken from the Masonic Templar efforts of Jacques Brier. When the Freemasons really came out and said, hey, we have Templar influence, they utilized that and Jacques Brier. Really, you're getting initiated in the Arcadia Club. This isn't just show up and listen to a lecture, you're actually physically initiated. Which, if any of you have watched The Vow or any other cult documentaries, just the mere act of an initiation ritual, a ceremony, psychologically grooms and changes you.
What's interesting is that it almost sounds like they take like a knight's oath, more so than initiation or just like it's like a frat boy induction meets oath of a knight.
It's very weird, but it does have a lot of influence from the Knights Templar. Now, the third, the piece of the group that everyone thinks about when they think about the Order of the Solar Temple, this third highest organization, think of it almost like DOS, with NXIVM's DOS. This is called the International Knighthood Organization. It was reserved for the most devoted. Its members had access to special personalized publications by Jouret and de Membro. They also went through a second initiation ritual for this one. In order to join this third group, people had to contribute a lot of money, accept severe discipline, and yes, that actually included physical discipline, and also accept a paternalistic hierarchy with Luc Jouret and de Montbreau at the very, very top. So what they said, that was it. To recap what we've discussed so far, Luc Jouret and de Montbreau founded the international chivalric organization Solar Tradition in 1983. Luc Jouret then founded 3 smaller groups under it, kind of under the umbrella, with each one offering more advanced knowledge. And as the person became more devout, they would perhaps be invited to the next level if they were worthy. Only the most worthy were selected for knighthood. And it's no surprise that those selected for knighthood were either the most wealthy or the most attractive.
Oh, man.
Or the ones with the most influence and power.
I'm never going to be selected for knighthood now.
Damn. Now, in 1986, Jouret, de Montbreau, and their wives, yes, they were both married, and de Montbreau had a child. They moved to Quebec, Canada, to open up a chapter specifically for the Order of the Solar Temple. This was done for a very simple reason. They already had a presence in French-speaking Europe, so now they just added one to French-speaking North America. They were hoping above all else to infiltrate America, the United States.
Man, everyone wants to infiltrate America.
That was their ultimate goal. In a memo to members, Montbreau and Jouret said, quote, "The Executive Council of this new order decided that, in line with the historic destiny of the Order of the Temple, the headquarters of the order should be located somewhere on the North American continent. The reason for this decision is simple. North America has become the source of most of the new impulses which determine the way life evolves on this planet. It is therefore fitting that the modern Knight Templar of the old continent should play his part in the Age of Aquarius by adding his inspiration to that which his counterparts in the New World will bring to the planet."
I don't like it when anyone says New World or and they're including astrological things.
So yeah, they wanted a foothold in the United States, and the closest that they could get, because they didn't really speak good English, is Quebec, Canada. So let's talk about their beliefs now. As you can already tell, the group was a mixture of Neo-Templar and esoteric. So remember our history lesson in episode 1? Well, it's all coming into play now. The group believed that they were a continuation of the original order of the Knights Templar. And remember how the original knights, again, were condemned in France, hunted down, executed?
And their bones were burnt. I just want to say that again.
Yes. So French and German Freemasons, again, claimed that these Templars blended in with them in order to escape prosecution. And that idea has been pretty much more or less thrown around since the 1700s. So again, the Templars teaching Masons theory was so popular that Napoleon Bonaparte actually tried to join the Order of the Solar Temple himself.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
he believed it?
He believed it. Napoleon of France tried to join himself.
Wasn't he tiny?
He was very, very, very short. So the group had 7 core tenets. Number 1, reestablish knowledge of authority and power, the power of the spirit, in a period of dissolution. 2, affirm the primacy of the spiritual over the temporal. So basically, one must pass through and get over materialism to rediscover the value of your mind.
Okay, I can be on board with
Totally.
that.
Number 3, make man aware of his dignity. Pull him out of his brutishness, laziness, unhealthy eating, and consumerist mentality. I can even get behind that. Now, Luc Jouret, as a homeopathic practitioner, believed that modern diets were lethal and toxic.
I can get behind that.
Right? Number 4, help humanity through its passage by being aware that we will live through a dissolution on a collective scale. They believe that we are just noble travelers on this planet. We're temporarily here. We're just noble travelers that need to be good shepherds to the planet. I can dig that too.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like we're waiting for aliens, but okay.
They had a lot of very pro-environmental beliefs. They believed that we were destroying the planet and that we should be fixing the planet and making it better. I can get behind that too. Number 5, participate in the assumption of the earth. The Templar is aware that the earth is his surrogate mother, and Templars have always been devoted to their earthly mothers, represented by the Virgin. The Universal Virgin gave birth to the universe. One of the temple's goals is to make the earth sacred and preserve it.
Okay, you lost me at the Virgin, but everything else sounds good.
Number 6, help unify the churches and reunite the 3 great religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Okay.
And then number 7, the key objective is the return of Christ in solar glory.
Wait, how does that happen, I wonder?
They felt that this was all temporary, that they would transcend to the next level on one of many other planets. Now, here's where it starts getting weird.
Oh, no. Oh, no. I knew it. I knew it. They knew it.
So according to Luc Jouret, death is an illusion. Life would continue on another planet which orbits the star Sirius. In order to reach that new world, members would have to leave through fire. They would have to perform this ritual before the end of the 1990s, literally like 1999. Remember that?
Uh-oh.
Because they believed that the world was going to suffer an environmental catastrophe and the world would be consumed in flames. So in order to escape this, they would let the fire take the planet.
Guys, let's just stop with the catastrophic ideas that something's going to happen to the planet. You don't know.
Now, DeMambro presented himself to the members as a representative of higher beings and the receiver and transmitter of divine messages. And he would share these with the members of the higher ranking groups, right? Like the super secret, the chivalric organization, or the Arcadia Club. He was the brains behind this entire operation. Luc Jouret was the handsome face and the charismatic person to get people drawn in. All of this mostly was DeMambro's doing. He claimed that he had all of these crazy powers. So in the beginning of ceremonies, he would show off these powers, and 2 women began to get undressed as the first notes of music started to play.
God damn it.
We know where this is going.
Yeah, it always goes there. Why?
And as they revealed their underwear, he had a light bulb detach itself from the spotlight, sever the head of a rose, and then it smashed down at the foot of the altar that he was standing at.
What a drama queen.
Yeah. He was like Liberace, and he had that stage game on fleek. He actually brandished a sword, and this is my favorite part of all of this. DeMambro brandished a sword, and he would yell out, "By the powers invested in me, I trace a protective circle around this holy assembly."
Wow, that's not, yeah, that's it. That's a little melodramatic, buddy.
With all of our powers combined.
I am Captain, well.
Yeah. If you think that's bad shit, Luc Jouret saw himself as Jesus Christ.
Oh, hey, it's getting better.
Yeah. He became obsessed with sex. And his thing is that he would have sex with one female member before every single ritual because he claimed that it gave him strength for the upcoming ceremony. All of these members, they ate it up, women included. They gave thousands, if not millions, of dollars to this group, and then they had sex with him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He had everything.
And a couple members who did leave in the mid-1990s came forward, and they admitted that they did not, as women, they admitted they did not want to sleep with him. That they did not want to, but they felt that they had to.
Oh, no.
So, again, this sounds, a lot like NXIVM. You get to the highest equivalent of the group, and then the sex starts.
That's horrible.
During this period, up until late 1989, prepare, sit down if you're not, the group had amassed a fortune of $92 million.
What the?
That was because only the most elite were allowed into the top tier, the top group. And much like Scientology, your progress depended on your checkbook, on the depth of your checkbook and wallet. Perhaps the most noted member of this group, of the Order of the Solar Temple, was Hollywood actress Grace Kelly.
Really?
She's an icon.
What?
She's an absolute icon. And as many of you know, she went on to be known as as Princess Grace of Monaco after she married into royalty. So she became, Princess Grace. She gave the Order of the Solar Temple $10 million of her own personal money.
That's like $10 to her, right?
Yeah, probably. But yeah, $10 million just from her alone. And we have in the next episode, we're going to stop this one here before we get into the downfall of the group. But yes, Grace Kelly gave them $10 million. So with such deep pockets and fanatical end-time beliefs, it was basically only a matter of time before the group went off the rails entirely. And so in the next episode, we will be discussing its downfall, baby murdering, criminal investigations, and mass suicides. But yeah, it's a fascinating group as a whole. I thought that I would be bored out of my mind with this, but I've actually learned a lot. There's almost 1,000 of these floating around in the world right now.
That's a lot of money to amass.
Yeah, $92 million, guys.
You know what you could do with $92 million? I wonder how much it would actually cost to feed a continent.
Well, I guess it depends on the size of the continent.
I guess experimental thought time.
Yeah. But yeah, guys, $92 million for this one cult. So this makes Heaven's Gate look like nothing. I mean, fleas, really.
No, the Heaven's Gate didn't really have the following that this has, or they didn't even have enough people to break off into sects.
Now, here's the thing. So Order of the Solar Temple is a hard way to quantify the membership. So in all three groups combined, you had over 1,000 members. Combined with all three groups.
Yeah.
But the upper echelon, the most secretive top tier of the group, no one actually knows how many people were involved in that one. Members have said that there was either between 1 and 400. That's quite a disparity.
Yeah.
So we don't know, but in its heyday, the group had between 1 and 2,000 members. I'll leave you with this tidbit before we end the episode, is that this flavor, this version of the Order of the Solar Temple is still operating today. This is, in fact, an active current cult.
Please don't hurt us.
Please don't hurt us. Yeah, it's still an active cult. And apparently they have somewhere between 400 and 500 current active members.
That's insane.
So we're going to get into the dark stuff on the next episode, guys. Again, thank you for listening. And, going back to the beginning, I'm sorry that things have been kind of behind with, social media postings and episodes. Again, life is a little dark right now. Thank you for your understanding and support there. November's Patreon episode is about to be released, and then things on the horizon. So we have the third and final piece of the Order of the Solar Temple coming, and then we have a really interesting Lori Vallow project for you guys. And we're not ready to announce it yet, but we are very, very, very excited. A lot of Patreon-only exclusives there. I will just use the word undercover. We'll have some of that content available for public, and then some for our Patreon. But we're really, really, really stoked to announce that. And then if you enjoyed our guest, Brittany, you may see her once again with that project.
I feel like she's kind of working in the shadows behind the curtains. What a little freak.
We love you, Brittany. So yeah.
That makes one of us, I guess.
And then as promised, we have the Hello Kitty murder coming up. Also for a Patreon-only episode, we have the horrific murder of Tim McLean of the Greyhound bus in Canada. That was horrific. So that's coming up. We have a lot of content coming out soon, guys. And then don't forget, in 2 weeks, we will be making our cross-country journey and having...
Yeah, we're going to freak ourselves out. We're going to be like, are you afraid of the dark times 12?
Mm-hmm. Like we said earlier, we are going to try to make this as interactive as humanly possible, maybe with a map, follow along, see things, and then stop, take pictures, and then do an episode on it. So.
I wish it'd be safe to have a GPS tracker so you guys could see where we are and we'd be recording and be like, we're recording right now. And they're like, what? That'd be so cool.
So we look forward to that. We do have stuff coming. Just thank you guys so much for being patient. And again, for the kind words of support. Again, you can find us at WeSawTheDevil.com for our website. You can also email and contact us from that. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at We Saw the Devil. We Saw the Devil Podcast on Instagram. And again, now is the time, if you want to sign up for our Patreon, now is the time to get cool true crime goodies, get the really sweet Patreon-only episodes, our undercover Lori Vallow stuff, which is going to be amazing, and more. So that's patreon.com/We Saw the Devil.
Until next crime.